I know many of the folks on this call today. For those of you that I don't know and haven't had the opportunity and pleasure to meet, my name is Hagen Brody, current mayor of the city of Sarasota, city commissioner. I was elected in 2017, and in November, I took over as mayor with the new elected commission. And we've really been trying to, in my mind, make a difference in a timely fashion. Two things that I'm really focused on is trying to address one way or another some of the lingering issues that has been plaguing the city for some of them over a decade, and bring those to a resolution and try to bring some of these issues, if not to a resolution, put them on a path to hopefully a successful and whether it's Bobby Jones or Lido Beach or some of these zoning issues. I'm really committed to dealing with these issues and not kicking the can down the road like it seems we have so many times and so many years before. But let me just talk about two things before I get started into kind of, I guess, my philosophy. One is that one of the things we've been successful since November in doing, and we're still working on, but it's really creating really professionalizing the organization, City Hall from the top down. We have a new city manager, we have a new police chief, and things are running much more professionally and, in my mind, more responsive and I just think we're creating a better product for our customers, which is the community. And that really does start at the top and work its way down all the way to the folks on the ground that our citizens deal with all the time. We're increasing accountability as far as time and the length of time that we respond to issues in the community, and just trying to become a much more professional and nimble organization to deal with the issues of our community. When I was elected in 2017, I mean, it was pretty broadly accepted that the City Hall, although people adored Sarasota, they didn't think City Hall was really functional and working for them and really capable of making big decisions and making big decisions well. We were losing lawsuits. We were revisiting issues, and most people felt that we weren't spending our money as wise as we could have. I'm really happy to report that a lot of that has changed course. I think we're being much more selective and diligent on the cases that we take to court and trial, and we're starting to win lawsuits again for the taxpayers. Some of the issues that have been lingering for years, I finally feel like we are on a path towards a successful resolution if they haven't been resolved already. And I can tell you here at City Hall, there is definitely a sense of excitement for some of the big challenges that we're taking on, but also a sense of really just professionalism and accountability. And I think that it shows even from the way that we're presenting ourselves to the public, to the way that people are interacting with our community when they come in to do business with the city. So I want to talk a little bit, just before I get into the questions, also about my philosophy, which quite honestly has taken several years to kind of formulate and really just land on a philosophy that guides me in my decision-making process here at City Hall and into the future, which is more or less what it's about. I think that we didn't become one of the greatest cities to live in or retire to, depending on what metric you look at, by accident. We have a pretty good formula that got us to this point, and we are very blessed to live in such a desirable community to live in and retire to, but it wasn't by accident. And when I think about what the kind of framework or the stool legs are that really have got us to this point, it really boils down to, for me, three main areas. One is the water. Well, the water and the beaches, the water quality, is clearly one of the most important things to our community that many of us have moved here for and stayed here for. And so we really have to make sure we are protecting our bays and estuaries. Two of the most important projects that we have going on right now that I really want to see to fruition are two major investments in water quality. One is at the bay, the 53 acres on the bayfront, which we're turning from an asphalt parking lot, as many of you know, into a public park with a lot of water cleansing improvements to take nutrients out of the stormwater before it makes its way into the bay. That area, basically the watershed going into that area is about 400 acres and ends up about 65 to 73 million gallons of water flowing through that property every year directly into the bay. The other one is Bobby Jones, which is actually a much bigger project as far as water quality goes. That is a watershed of about 5,800 acres, not just from the city, but from the county as well, that takes stormwater from that area from 5,800 acres and to the tune of about 2.6 billion gallons of water flowing through that property. And so we're investing millions of dollars to make sure that we have that water is being cleaned adequately before it makes its way into our bays and estuaries to keep our water quality up. Extremely important. The second, I think, leg to this stool is the arts and culture community. I don't think anybody can deny that arts and culture is a huge part of why many of us live here and many of us continue to live here. And so I look at it really in two ways. One is it's really our responsibility to make sure that the arts and cultural institutions have a path and a plan to evolve into the future. Many of our arts and cultural institutions, their facilities are at their end of life. They've outgrown their facilities for whatever reason. They are looking for their next chapter here in Sarasota. And I think it's really important that we support them and help them in whatever way they need to find a path to continue to offer the richness and the quality of life that so many generations before us have been able to benefit from for the next generations into the future. The other part of that is really valuing our history and kind of where we've come from in Sarasota. And I think personally, I feel like we've gotten away from that a little bit. We originally were a circus town. And I just think that is just the coolest, weirdest, most interesting aspect of our history that doesn't get enough. It's not being used enough. It's not being incorporated and honored enough in our community. And so I really want to see us remember that is how we started. And that's one of the things that makes us really unique. And it's what gives us our culture here and really start to incorporate some of that circus history and pay homage to it in more of our public spaces, our public art, stuff like that. Street signs. I mean, any way that we can really kind of pay homage to that history, I think is just something that sets us apart. And I guess the third leg of my stool for our community is investing in our urban centers. Downtown is one of them. I think of St. Armand's is really the other one. Downtown, it needs help. It needs work. We have to improve our streetscapes. We have to improve these corridors. Particularly coming out of COVID, I think we've kind of remembered that these are central locations for our entire community, every neighborhood in our community to come and enjoy each other's company. And I just think our streetscapes and our public spaces need some help in the downtown area and also on St. Armand's. So those are the three things that in my mind really made Sarasota what it was up to this point. And I think that it's a winning formula. And I think that when we look to the future, it's how are we going to incorporate, how are those things going to be incorporated into the Sarasota of the next generation. And I guess binding that all together is connectivity. Connectivity is a very important part of what we do at City Hall. I think that's our responsibility, to make sure people can get to these assets and get around town in an efficient manner. And so whether it's in a vehicle, trolley, bike, scooter, we want to make it an easier challenge to get around. So that's kind of my philosophy, and where I hope to be going at a 30,000 foot view, but I am happy to answer any questions. And I know you have some questions here.
Yep. Mayor, I think I'm back now, if you can hear me.
Yep.
Yeah, your preamble, your remarks were very helpful lead in to these few questions we have. As I say, the Diskin neighborhood's about 1.7 square miles.
Sure.
And with about 12,000 residents now. We've conducted a parcel by parcel analysis on that, and we think that number is pretty accurate. Currently, the downtown neighborhood is roughly 20–21% of the total city. And with projects on the drawing board, that is with site plans approved, we estimate we think we're going to be pretty accurately. There's going to be another 3,000 residents moving downtown in the next 5 to 6 years. And they're either going to be, a little bit to the southwest in the Quay parcels, East Main, and that our neighborhood is probably going to account for around 70% of the total city's population growth in the coming years. So the question is, what specific strategies is the city considering and planning for this significant infill growth? Are there any specific strategy that you and your colleagues and staff have in the works or in mind to address this train that's on the track, and Florida Black Swan event is
Sure.
darn likely to happen?
So one of the biggest, challenges and I think important things that we need to address is some of our zoning issues and our zoning code. Right now, we, particularly in the downtown, are working off of a downtown 2020 plan. Clearly, it's 2021, and we need to take a second look at the zoning code, as well as our commercial corridors. I mean, you guys downtown obviously have some beautiful commercial areas and some new buildings, but when you look at a lot of Sarasota, the city of Sarasota, the commercial corridors are really in rough condition, whether it's North 41, North Trail, South 41, Fruitville, 12th Street, 17th Street, MLK corridor. I mean, our commercial corridors have really lacked investment and are in dire need of a facelift and some investment. So a lot of that has to do with how these areas are zoned. So we're taking a look at the zoning there, and hopefully we're gonna entice some redevelopment in some of those areas. Now downtown, I don't know if you had a chance to see, I thought Steve Cover, our planning director, put an excellent little slide together and showed what downtown would look like if it was fully built out. And no offense to downtown, but I'm just simply not a fan of the short, squat, wide buildings that our zoning code currently encourages, really mandates. If our downtown is built out in the way that it is designed, there's going to be zero airflow. There's going to be very little sunlight. There's going to be very little view corridors. There's going to be big, squat, blocky building after big, squat, blocky building. And the only way to deal with that is in the zoning code. I see one of the questions in here is about public review and public hearings. Many of you know my position on that. The way that a city develops is 100% in the zoning code. It's not the process. It's really the code that it determines what is built there and what can be built there. And I think there's some things that we can do when you look at best practices at other cities that really have beautiful award-winning downtowns, there is one type of or style of building that you see over and over again. And what it is a building that, you know, in the downtown core would be built up to the sidewalk to allow that interaction between the sidewalk, the pedestrian, and the commercial space, go up maybe 3 or 4 floors, but then step in and have more of a slender pedestal on top of that that allows for more space around the building. And that's what I hope to achieve in the downtown area. That's really what I'm looking for as far as design goes for more of our downtown development. I think it will help tremendously with views and sunlight and all the, you know, the air and the coolness. I think it'll help a lot with all those things as we move forward. But that's not how our code is right now. We're going to continue to have these same kind of blocky buildings until we address that.
Yeah.
The other thing, let me just say, David, the other thing is our density downtown. You know, as you get further and further away from the water, I think there's some opportunities for some heightened density to allow for more affordable kind of market rate, missing middle type units that you see in other communities. And why that's important for everybody is that some of our areas of downtown have seen a lot of investment and some haven't. The areas that haven't seen that much investment, first of all, some of those areas need to get redeveloped. They're just some of those plots of land, whether it's a vacant parking lot or you know, just a underused piece of land, it's not helping anyone. But when you increase density in the downtown, you also increase customer bases and you increase the number of people in the area that will support the businesses there. And so I think that not only will it lead to a more vibrant, active downtown, but it'll lead to better quality of life businesses and restaurants and you know, all the kind of stores that make living downtown so much fun.
Yeah, and that's all what, yeah, thank you for that. And I think what the DSCA request is, we'd sure like to have be involved in the process as the zoning is formulated, and we would welcome the chance in whether it be community meetings or some ad hoc group, if it could be put together to meet with Steve Cover and his team as this evolves. We note that, you know, again, you're trying to run your city commission meetings tighter and leaner. So, you know, community involvement and steering those is somewhat more difficult. So we would be like to engage with you and city staff on DSCA involvement. Again, 21% of the city. We applaud efforts in other parts of the city, North Trail and whatever, but our focus, to be honest with you, is more our downtown area right next door. So is that something that you could foresee talking to Mr. Cover about and trying to get DSCA, and we might even put together an ad hoc group to liaise. I think in other situations we've done that with some success. So
yeah, sure. And and David, as you know, we worked closely together on the Rosemary overlay over the last couple of years, and you know, we've directed and I've directed Steve to do as much outreach as possible over the next several months. And this is the time to do it. This is where the public input is important. This is where our residents really need to have their voice heard. You know, sometimes, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, some things I think people are going to be happy about, maybe some things they're not happy about, but this is the time for public input. It's in the zoning update, zoning code process.
Sure, and we would welcome that opportunity, and we would be more than willing to be constructive, pro-growth neighbors We're looking for a balance as our downtown area grows across the board. So you would have that commitment from me, and I know our board would welcome a chance to kind of liaise with Steve as things evolve.
Yeah, it's not about pro-growth or anti-growth. It's about smart growth. You know, we're trying to, we all know that our city has had zoning code problems for years. You know, you look at the buildings that are built and they go up right next to each other on Palm. You know, that can be addressed. It just needs to be addressed kind of holistically. And I think this is the time when some of this stuff needs to finally get dealt with.
Yep. Okay. And count us into trying to help in that process.
You got it.
Skipping ahead, the community workshops and public hearings, specifically, again, with the MO you've adopted in your fellow commission to shorten and make your commission meetings more tight and so forth. It occurs to us that community workshops and public hearings can actually be the lowest total cost solution. And what I mean, you're too young to remember the Fram oil filter ad, you know, it was kind of pay me now or pay me later. You know, we can have community engagement at the front end of a project, and that save heartburn and grief, you know, at the back end. And that's where we continue to encourage, just with the zoning on other factors where the community can be engaged and have its radical input early in the process. Talk to us about that.
So the question was, you're cutting out a little bit, and I think this is the question you were asking. Would you advocate for requiring community workshops and public hearings, or both, for larger projects to improve efficiency and effectiveness in development decision making? I can tell you that zoning and development probably has more misconceptions about what we're able to do and what we're not able to do, and how much discretion we have and how little discretion we have, more than any other issue we deal with. Definitely outside, people think that it's the same as like making a, you know, decriminalizing marijuana or some kind of legislative action. And it's just not. The zoning code, and that's why it's so important to go through the zoning code process, because a zoning code is a menu that a landowner can choose from to build off of. I mean, and if it's on the menu, generally they get to build it, and they get to build it the way that it says that it's cooked on the menu. And one of the things I've found is that some of the public hearings that we have late in the game, people have a false sense of what's even a possible outcome of that public hearing. And sometimes I don't think that there's, you know, we have some people that I think push that idea, but you know, at the end of the day, I have to follow the law, and the zoning code is a law. And so we're going through the process of changing the code, which is going to end up being more impactful than any procedure. If we have a code that is a good code that everybody wants to see come to fruition, you want to make the procedure as streamlined as possible so that we see that investment and we see those changes in our lifetime. You know, public hearings on development issues really just engender a lot of unnecessary conflict. People think that that we have options that we don't have, and generally at the end of the process, once a building and a builder have spent a ton of money, kind of getting it to a place where they're ready to build, and it meets the code, you know, sometimes I think, what is the outcome we're looking for here? Do you want me to, you know, to just vote no and you know, against what the law says and what they're entitled to, and just to have it taken to court? I think workshops can be helpful, particularly in the early stages. I think that there are certain things that you know about your neighborhood or your area that somebody that just bought a piece of property or something wouldn't know. And I think that it's helpful to have those conversations. But I can tell you from my experience, what people think they're going to get out of a public hearing, their time is better spent helping us create a zoning code that we can be happy and proud to implement.
Okay, well, we'll engage with you and Steve Hover, and because this is all tied together, and we look forward to that.
I think we lost him again.
Lose him again.
Okay. So let me look here. There's a couple issues that jumped out at me as important. The zoning process is going to be very important. That's a big deal, particularly if you're downtown. So please do be a part of that. We want to create, like I said, more light, more airflow. We want to create a more aesthetically pleasing downtown skyline. We want to create better streets and wider sidewalks on some of our major commercial corridors. We want a downtown that is really, really world-class, because that's what I think we all deserve. The homeless issue is something that I saw on here as a category. And, I got to tell you, the homeless issue has gotten a lot better. I remember maybe 5 years ago, it was really bad downtown. And you had some frequent flyers that were just, very tough clients for the city to try to deal with and get services. But the city really has done a pretty remarkable job in that department. Obviously, we still have some issues to deal with. And it's been tough during COVID, obviously, because everybody's kind of just trying to keep their bearings straight. But, I think we're refocusing on that issue, particularly in the downtown. There's a couple of ordinances that I've been working on with our city attorney that I'm going to bring forth that'll hopefully keep a little more order in our downtown, whether it's homeless folks or not. Sometimes, sometimes you can't tell the difference, but there are clearly still some problems we need to address. And so I'll be bringing a couple ordinances forward in the next couple months to continue to try to address that issue. The 2022 budget is coming up, which is going to be very important. And like I said, I'm going to be really trying to fight for some real investment in our downtown and on St. Armand's as well, but on downtown in particular. And part of that, a lot of that is going to be dedicated to transportation. We have the Legacy Trail coming into the city of Sarasota very soon. And that is just going to be such a wonderful amenity. I think it's going to bring a lot of people, pedestrians and bicycles into the downtown area. But on the flip side, it's going to open up the entire, region for us, for our residents to take advantage of on their bicycles and pedestrians. So we're doing everything we can as quickly as we can to make sure that people can get from the downtown corridor out to the beaches, from the downtown corridor out to the Legacy Trail. We're narrowing Ringling Boulevard to provide a very safe, scenic bike route. We're really trying to improve the multimodal trails and sidewalks out to the beach. Connectivity is going to be a very big theme for the commission in the upcoming budget year. Well,
Mayor, I'm happy you brought up that connectivity thing, and on that, congratulations on being appointed the chair of Bay Park Improvement Board that will control the tax increment funding. One opportunity, that fund is allowed to be used for connectivity needs, specifically on the Boulevard of the Arts Streetscape project, would be one opportunity to use that money for connecting to the Bay Park, as well as improving the livability, walkability opportunity for the Rosemary District. Do you foresee recommending the use of TIF money for projects such as Boulevard of the Arts?
I think we have money in our budget, thanks to you, Mr. Lowe, to improve Boulevard of the Arts. But obviously, connectivity is going to be a big portion of it. But we got to make sure we have something we're connecting to first. So as far as the TIF dollars go, the focus really is going to be on getting the park done. And depending on which way we go with our Performing Arts Center, making sure that we have funding for a new Van Wezel or a restoration or whatever that ends up being. I haven't quite turned my attention to that yet, but those are the two significant funding priorities of the Bay Park, because people want to see that thing. People want to see it done in their lifetime. People want to see it done in the next, 5 to 10 years so they can enjoy it. Yep. The connectivity is going to be a part of it. We do have other pots of money for some of those street improvements, though. The penny sales tax is an important one that'll be coming back up for referendum that we use to really improve our streets and sidewalks. But, connectivity is obviously part of that top 3 priorities of the Bayfront.
And I think we would observe that multimodal fees have been significantly contributed by projects downtown, and that's one more pot. I just know that oftentimes projects are easier off the ground if there are multiple pots of money to tap into, sure, so that no one pot, bears the whole brunt.
So let me ask you, I don't know. I wanted to also, if we have time, just hear some priorities from you all. What things you think we really need to be focused on, or what's important to you, or questions, comments, critique for me. If you have time for that, Mr. Lowe, I would.
Yeah, just one more specific question, then we'll open it up to some of our board members. Canopy trees and walkability. As we grow, one key opportunity that's going to be on our list as a priority is walkability, and walkability translates oftentimes into shaded streets, and it's something that's been woefully the green space policy, which has been in place and rarely implemented. I had a question to you, some quotes from you from a couple of years ago, where you, as putting a plan together for us taking responsibility for the public realm and doing it. At that meeting, it was a context of piecemeal kinds of planning for right-of-ways. And at that time, you were looking for a more downtown-wide plan. And I was just wondering, we now have a new chief engineer, and what opportunities exist with the new EDCM to really get a streetscape plan, a right-of-way plan for trees put in place and implemented.
I still believe that is important. What that means essentially is we cannot do this by doing it property by property that gets redeveloped. It'll take us 200 years to realize a streetscape or a sidewalk plan by doing it like that. And that's why we have some of these areas that you'll see, like an 8-foot sidewalk that ends into a 3-foot sidewalk and then changes back, or you can't do it piecemeal like that. We really do have to take responsibility for our public spaces and sidewalks in particular. So, a lot of the plans that are being looked at for the corridors downtown, like Main Street, are including larger sidewalks, more trees. I will say that I think that the right tree, I'm a big believer in the right tree for the right place. I think some places are good for canopy trees. Others, I like palm trees as well. I think they're beautiful. in the right place and really can add a lot of class to a strip of or a commercial corridor. But I understand the shade issue, and we just have to be smart about it. Some areas don't have a sun problem, and you know, like Lemon Avenue for me, that was more appropriate to do with palm trees because the building for the most part shaded that area. And I think it just looks very prestigious, very classy. But I think I'm a believer, like I said, right tree, right place. I guess that's where I'm at with the tree.
Okay, final specific question, and then to the group, and that is pedestrian safety. One of the key issues on the connectivity portion of things is pedestrian safety, crossing 41, crossing Fruitville, it's places like Central and that. On the call today is David Lipinski. David is president of the Federation of Condos on Longboat, representing 76 different condo buildings. And he's a frequent traveler, as are the Longboat people, to downtown, and they have a vested interest in pedestrian safety too, whether it be pedestrian bridges or more hawk lights or crosswalks. What can you tell us about your platform on pedestrian safety in the greater downtown?
Yeah, well, definitely it's kind of, and I look at it in two parts. One is the design of the corridors and roads is very important. We need to make sure we have bike lanes and there's enough space for pedestrian and bicycles to get around. When you, particularly when you look at the number of new cyclists and pedestrians that are going to be coming into our downtown, and that takes time. It takes money to redesign these spaces. The other part of that is enforcement, and Sarasota needs to slow down. It just does. We have been used to kind of flying through some of these roads that have now become very pedestrian heavy in a very short period of time. And we just need to make sure that people are slowing down. So one of the things that I'm really pushing for this budget season is to equip more of our patrol vehicles and SPD vehicles with radar and speed detecting devices. You may not believe this, but as of right now, none of our police vehicles have mounted radar and speed detection devices. They have handheld devices, laser handheld speed detection, but that's only good if you're stationary and you're kind of doing a little speed trap operation. There's no active speed monitoring going on, which is, in my mind, just a no-brainer. I want all of our police vehicles to be actively monitoring speed. So when they patrol neighborhoods, when they patrol downtown, they have the ability to pull people over that are going too fast, and that people know if you are, flying by a cop, they're going to get you in the city of Sarasota. So for me, it's really a design issue and an enforcement issue.
Okay. And then there's just one more that I promised somebody. Just as recently as 2 days ago, a petition showed up in Mr. Brown's desk, signed by around 550 people, dealing with noise and sound matters. It seems like two groups are kind of emerging. One group seems more focused on vehicular noise, motorcycles, cars, etc., and maybe they overlay with another group that seems more concerned with amplified music and the like. And DSCA, after we leave speaking with you, sir, that's going to be one of our agenda items. But I believe Mr. Fournier has a draft sound ordinance in the works. Can you tell us about where that is and your thoughts on this matter where I think the DSCA Board is committed to some kind of a balanced approach that takes into account our various stakeholders. But it seems like it's getting a lot of traction these days. And how do we tackle this?
Yeah, the vehicular sound issues, I am not caught up on the state of the law on those. The last time for whatever reason, I think there's a lot of legal issues enforcing loud cars. But you know, that's a problem. I'll tell you, it's a problem citywide. I live on Tuttle, and it's ridiculously loud sometimes, just with people that don't have a muffler, or they're, you know, blaring their music so loud they can't even hear themselves think. And it's not just, it's citywide. We have issues in Newtown. People are complaining about it. So, but I do think that that's a complicated one as far as enforcement goes. But looking forward to learning more about it in the coming months. The noise downtown, you know, that is a tough one because, you know, we live in Florida. People want to be outside. They want to be eating outside. People like having music in the air in their downtown. And, you know, it's just a balance. I think that, you know, we got to find a common ground between accommodating the people that live downtown and also understanding that downtown is supposed to be a vibrant urban setting that is not just for the people that live downtown, but for us all. I mean, I don't live downtown, but I come downtown a lot. And, you know, I think that not just our other city neighborhoods, but you know, our downtown is a regional downtown, and it brings benefits as well. I mean, the great restaurants and the you know, the next great restaurants and coffee shops and, you know, all of those what I call quality of life businesses that we all love to frequent depend on people coming downtown, and you know, that's going to be a tough issue, but I can tell you, generally speaking, I am not opposed to having music in the air downtown, to having people sitting outdoors listening to music. Obviously, there's a limit to that, but to me, that's part of the urban experience.
I think I can speak for our board in saying that we'd like to be part of the solution here, or part of the process, and it's just getting a lot of traction and a lot of heartburn. So we'll be talking, you know, later in our board meeting tonight about how our organization might try to be of some help in threading the needle here, as you say, the vibrant city, but with reasonable bounds and balance. So we will be talking about that later tonight, and would hope you would support involvement of some of these groups coming together. So absolutely. With that said, we're running a bit over, but you asked the question about priorities, and I was wondering if some of our other board members might chime in here. Kathy Sellers. Kathy, let me put you on the spot. Kathy is a new resident in the downtown area. I believe she's from Milwaukee, has weighed into the board activities and been very active, and is a newcomer. What would be some of your priorities, Kathy?
Well, thank you for including me in on the discussion here. I appreciate the opportunity to have time to ask a question here. We moved in here pre-COVID, so you know, some of what we are seeing down at Main Street has been great. I was glad to hear at the DID meeting, as well as the commission meeting, addressing some of what we see on Main Street with the outdoor dining, and it's great. I love a vibrant downtown, you know, and I feel for the opposing opinion that during the day, what's left behind, the remnants, what we see in the streets from, you know, restaurants not being in business or whatever, during the day, it's not a pretty sight. So I'm glad that that's being addressed, that they're going to look at some of the restaurants that still have their gated things out there blocking off the street. One of my biggest questions have been the vacancies in the buildings that we have downtown. We have, Sur La Table that's empty, but ones that have been empty since I've been down here have been the Med Red building, the Crest building next door, and then going down on Pineapple, we have some vacancies there as well that have been there. I asked the question of someone who I thought would know if we, first of all, would have a vacancy tax if we impose that here in the city of Sarasota. I don't know, with things the way the market is, I understand that retail is slow, whatever, but I kind of get the sense that, especially I am going to call it out as being the Med Red building, and I've had conversation that they're just kind of sitting on it. They have someone, that lease pulled out. I mean, it's just kind of sitting there. And I guess, what do we do? How do we see that? When you look at the street in the daytime, we have the restaurants that aren't open, so that's closed down. We have these storefronts, those are closed, or buildings that aren't being occupied. It doesn't give a very good look to the city. What do you see as a path forward from that? I don't even know if that's a fair question to be asking you, but it is one that
That's a good question. Let me first speak to the parking, use of the parking lots. We just had that issue come up, and my feeling is we're helping people get through COVID, and these restaurants, people are still not that comfortable eating indoors, and so people are really taking advantage of those outdoor spaces, and we're happy to provide that. At some point, that's probably going to end. At least I don't see it continuing into the future. To tell you the truth, I think right around August and September, when it's 105 degrees out, I think most people are going to be wanting to eat back inside again. And that might be the end of that until we're able to invest into new streetscapes and wider sidewalks and do it right, which is essentially what we need to do. And that's part of it. I'm not in favor of a vacancy tax. I feel that our downtown should be a desirable place to have a business. And if it's not, then we have some other bigger problems to deal with. Investing in the streetscapes and improving these areas and I think making them more attractive, I think will help a lot. But also, like I go back to often, this idea of increasing density downtown. Density is a controversial subject to some, but I just want to be the first, to kind of start this conversation, because we're going to be having it during our zoning amendments. Density is a friend to a lot of these issues. And if we have, instead of a building that has, maybe 50 units in it, and 2/3 of those units are vacant during the summer months or half the year or whatever, it's versus a building that maybe has 150 or 200 smaller units that is full of people that are there year round. You start to see a lot more support for the commercial businesses and what I call quality of life businesses that we'll see flourish in the downtown corridor. It's just, one of the things that I learned over my first term is that there are so many issues that people look at in silos, but there's really symbiotic relationships between these things. And everybody has to learn to give and take a little bit. Sure, if we have more people downtown, yes, you're going to have a little more traffic. There's going to be, more people on the sidewalk. But the flip side of that is the quality and the number of businesses that we'll have downtown that are not just, that are supported not just on a Friday and Saturday night, but there's people downtown that go eat at those restaurants and go to those coffee shops and visit those pizza parlors or the sports bars on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You're going to see the quality of those businesses rise and increase for everybody. So, I think that that is a big part of it, to be perfectly honest.
Mayor, I'm afraid we're running over here. We really appreciate your time. Any of our board members, is there anybody who would like to make a final observation or priority or something we missed? One of our board members, Peter, Ken, anybody have a comment? I see Peter raising his hand. Peter Fanning.
Thank you, Mayor, for attending the meeting. I think you have helped us see some light and progress being made. I'd like to point out one thing that you said several times that I think is very important, and that is that you referred to balance, a balance among the various constituencies in the city. The homeless is a constituency, the caregivers are constituencies, the businesses are constituencies, and they all have central interests. And I think if you can keep in the back of your mind, as well as encourage the other commissions to think in balance on some of these things, that very few of the issues that we're facing are either or issues. And I think one of the reasons we're not improving in some of those is they're looked at as being in opposition to one another, and we can't get the various players in those groups together to bring about the balance that you speak of. So I appreciate that, and I hope that you'll keep that balance issue in mind.
Okay, well, Peter, with that said, Mayor, we thank you very much for being with us on 3
Definitely.
June evenings in a row. And we look forward to seeing you at City Hall and working with you and your colleagues for really good results. We've got great opportunities ahead of us, and I know the DSCA organization is very committed to do all we can to be good partners with you.
Definitely, and keep in mind that we moved our commission meetings to the evening so more people can participate. You can participate via Zoom. You can give public input. I try to be as accessible as possible, but you know, you guys live in the center of it all, and I just, you know, we do really have a great downtown, and you know, I want to share it with more people, and make sure that downtown is a meeting place and a place where everybody feels comfortable and welcome. And so appreciate everything you guys do and your involvement in the community, and I'll see you around town.
Okay, enjoy that margarita tonight. Take care.
You got it.
Okay, bye.